So for our session today, I wanted to start with an opening thought. And this is actually, Sylvain supplied this for us. He saw a safety poster at the Toronto Pearson Airport that read, "My safety matters to me because I matter to him." And the poster had a picture of the gentleman running the forklift and then a second picture with the gentleman and his son in a hockey jersey on the rink. And this is an area that I think really brings things home when we look at safety. The frustrating piece with what I do as the National Safety Officer is I read the reports and I compile the reports, and year over year we see similar things occurring. And we wanted to bring it home and really highlight when something goes wrong, it's not just us. We want to think about those people that are left behind. I was chatting just before, over lunch, and we were talking about a fatal accident at CVVQ and how it really changes you and how you're the ones left behind, right? And yet we want to keep that in mind when we're out there doing the things that potentially lead to those. But of course, we also want to keep it in both languages.
Oui, donc ma sécurité compte pour moi parce que je compte pour lui.
I think that's it.
Yeah, on va pas tout répéter cela. Je pense que vous allez pouvoir suivre. Mais le principe, c'est que ça nous touche. Puis je pense qu'on n'a pas besoin d'expliquer au groupe qui est ici aujourd'hui.
Merci beaucoup. So we're going to be doing our session today in 3 parts. This is the first part, which is just the actual safety report. So we're going to go through the numbers. We're then going to do a safety session called the Neuroscience of Safety. This is a session that I've done in Toronto and in Calgary. It's been very well received. I've also done it with the SSA and down at Oshkosh. So I wanted to bring it here for you today. And then we're going to have Pierre come up and supplement all of that with some of his work from the Transport Safety Board. So our concerns. The same old, same old. We're seeing the same things happening again and again and again. In particular, 5 spoilers were left open on takeoff. Last year it was 6. 5 canopies were left open on takeoff. Last year it was also 5. We had 8 gear collapses. Again, same numbers both years. We're not learning our lessons. Now, spoilers and canopies, we think those are minor incidents, yeah? One of those spoiler incidents turned into a write-off of a 2-seat glider. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to get out in front of these. Now, these are simple little things that we should not be making that mistake, right? But it's when we make those simple mistakes that they develop into bigger mistakes. So let's take a quick look at the stats. Of the 5 accidents, 100% of them were attributed to airmanship. And from a phase of flight perspective, 4 out of the 5 were in the landing phase. So landing continues to be our big danger point. From an incidence perspective, we look at the categories. Again, we've got 66% in airmanship. From a phase of flight perspective, takeoff and landing continues to be the high danger zones. And really that makes a lot of sense because of course if we have a mistake close to the ground, we tend to hit solid objects. We have a mistake higher up in the air and we have room to maneuver. Right? So I don't think the phase of flight will ever change, but it's the airmanship piece that I want to focus in on. So the question then becomes, if airmanship is the problem, what is the answer? And I would like to pose that to you. What do you think? Checks. And what do you mean by checks? The checklists? Like a pre-flight checklist? Okay. Same thing? And the reason I wanted to qualify on that, because of course we have our spring checks. Joe?
Checks of the machine.
Mm-hmm.
Checks of the pilot.
Yes.
Is he in good shape? Is he emotional? Is he disturbed? Is he tired?
Absolutely.
Is he slept well?
So last night over dinner, chatting with Bruce, we talked about the I Am Safe checklist. And he said what he does now is he runs it every half hour while flying. Right? Because of course we had that, that scenario where you're out on the 3, 4, 5, 6, 9-hour flight. You were safe when you left. Maybe you're safe halfway through. We're now getting to the critical phase, yeah? Right, we're now getting to landing. Are we still safe? What do you think is one of the biggest factors that's going to lead you to not be safe as that flight progresses? Fatigue? Dehydration. Right? And then the third one, fatigue, dehydration, food, right? Yeah, so that whole energy piece. We're going to dig into that a little bit more in the second part. Now, as pilots, we are extremely self-critical. We're critical of ourselves, but we're also critical of our friends, of our fellow pilots. Last year in Alberta, when we did our national safety briefing, one of the accidents was a 21 they were doing an operation, and we've all done this. We land in the reciprocal, yeah? We take off one way, we land the other way. It helps, you know, push the operation forward. We don't have to push back and so on and so on. He landed just a little bit long and ran into a fence. Fortunately, it was relatively minor damage. They only broke a canopy, you know, scratched a wing. But he came to me after the session and he said, you know, I have gotten so much flack, so much trouble, so much criticism, because people were coming to him and saying, you did this wrong. Yeah? Now, we all make mistakes. Is there anyone here who can honestly put up their hand, honestly, and say, I've never made a mistake? Dan, you're fired. So mistakes are inevitable. Now, we do not make mistakes because we are bad people. Okay? We do not make mistakes because we are dumb. We do not make mistakes because we are irresponsible, and we do not make mistakes because we are thoughtless. We make mistakes because we are human. And when we look at what we're doing and try to improve safety, what we want to do is shift our focus away from the people and shift the focus to the systems. And think about the answers that we got when I said, how do we improve this? Checklist, system, right? How do we put those things in place? And then we need to be disciplined to follow that. So this is a very important concept. So I want to, Pierre, if you can.
Juste pour revoir en français, je pense que tout le monde a compris. Tout le monde ici comprend l'anglais? Non, pas tout à fait. OK, je vais parler, si vous me le dites, si je ne parle pas assez fort. C'est que le point de départ, c'est que les erreurs sont inévitables. Donc, les êtres humains font des erreurs. On ne les fait pas parce qu'on est des mauvaises personnes, parce qu'on est bête, qu'on est irréfléchi, qu'on est irresponsable. Les erreurs arrivent. Vous allez le voir plus tard aujourd'hui. On va en parler beaucoup de toutes les sortes d'erreurs qu'on peut faire. Mais c'est important de se retirer de l'erreur pour essayer de comprendre qu'est-ce qui s'est passé et le pourquoi la personne a posé ce geste à ce moment-là. Et sur ça, on va y revenir plus tard, mais il faut reculer un petit peu, prendre un pas de recul puis regarder le système. Donc, on a parlé des checklists, des autres défenses qu'on a disponibles dans le système.
Merci.
David?
So this concept, and a lot of what I'm drawing on here, you notice at the bottom it says on being wrong. Kathleen Scholes is a wrongologist, so she studies the psychology of how we believe and how we react when we're wrong. Right? And what we need to do is accept that we make mistakes. And when we start to accepting making mistakes, we then talk about them. And it no longer becomes bad or wrong to talk about them. And when we talk about them, we learn. And when I share my mistake with you, hopefully, you don't make the same mistake that I did. And potentially, I've just saved your life. So I interviewed Chris Hadfield for an article in Free Flight a couple of years ago, and he framed it this way. He said, when you share the mistake that you made with another pilot, you are saving their life. Joe?
I see a typo on your slide at the bottom. There is on Boeing wrong.
On the English side or the French side?
Boeing. No, the bottom.
Oh, on Boeing. We'll save that conversation for the bar. Okay. So again, want to just emphasize, we need to focus on the systems. Let's have those conversations. And what we want to do is be learning, be constantly learning. So I want to be learning from you, and I'm hoping that you're learning from me. How do we put this into practice? I came across this poster. The right side of this poster is what to do wrong, so how to be ineffective, focusing on lagging indicators, and that's what we're actually doing when we look at accident statistic reports. We're focusing on the lagging indicators. Right, so we're focusing on the indicator that tells us after the thing has occurred, yeah? Doing an injury-based incentive systems, so this is, reinforcing the wrong thing. So hence, when we wag our finger at you for making a mistake and berate you and criticize you, what behavior am I asking for? I'm asking for silence, right? So instead of rewarding the behavior of you coming forward, and telling me, right? So we want to shift that focus and so on. So we see that we have 7 ways of doing this. And then on this side of the poster, there's 7 ways of doing it right. Now, I'm more than happy to share this with you. Just send me an email and I will reply or send it back. So focus on the indicators. What are the indicators to tell us we're doing things right? And what are the indicators to tell us early that we're doing things wrong? So when you see the small things going wrong, okay? When you see the small things where you have that close call but nothing was damaged, let's talk about that. Let's identify that and let's say, hey. Question, good, okay. Behavior-based reinforcement. We need to reinforce at a behavioral level. A couple years ago, we had an issue at our club with students coming in too low to land, right? We're telling them, come in up here, and they're coming in close to the ground, they're hot dogging it in, coming in close to putting it on the numbers, that kind of thing. And I said, I wonder why this is occurring. We're telling them all the right thing. What we were doing as instructors and as senior pilots is we were behaving wrong. We were demonstrating coming in low, because we could. It's okay for me, don't you? Yeah? So I said to the instructor, I said, let's do an experiment. Let's all come in here for the next month. Guess what all our students started doing? They all started doing what we've been asking them to do, right? But they weren't doing what we were asking them, they were doing what we were showing. So every time you do a low save, every time you taxi your glider towards your trailer and get it close so that it's easier to de-rig, every time you do something like that where you break the rules, but it's okay because I'm a senior pilot, right? We need to do some analysis and then, of course, action on that. We need to increase our near-miss reporting, and we need to be a safety coach, not a safety police. Now, near-miss reporting is really, really key. There's a bit of a misnomer around the pyramid where we have lots of little accidents, lots of little incidents, and that builds up and becomes an accident. The truth is, when we don't have the reporting, we don't know what's going on, and we can't take corrective action. So what you'll see is I have no incidents, no incidents, no incidents, and then all of a sudden we have a big accident. It's not because we had no incidents. It's because we weren't talking about them. But if we're talking about them, and if I'm reporting 100 incidents, we're talking about it, we're learning, and then we're stopping the accident. So how do we do this in practice? And I want to share with you what we did at our club. We want to do a behavior-based reinforcement system. We want to do some analysis and action. We want to encourage that near-miss reporting, and we want to be a safety coach. We want to have those conversations. Now, the picture here is me awarding the Senior Sky Commander Award. The gentleman inside of the halo, yes, that's what we'll call it. So yes, that is a toilet seat. The gentleman receiving the award is a gentleman named Dave McLean, and he coined himself the Senior Sky Commander. He came to us with 0 time. He is a student pilot. He's now licensed, and he did it very tongue-in-cheek. He didn't come in saying, I'm Senior Sky Commander like I know what I'm doing. He came in saying, like, I'm Senior Sky Commander, and that title is so ridiculous because I don't know what I'm doing. So we created an award called the Senior Sky Commander Award. Actually, that's the short name. Here's the full name. The Senior Sky Commander Award. I screwed up and managed to use my superior skill and sheer good looks to save the day award. Here's what this award celebrates. You making a mistake. It celebrates a pilot who makes a mistake, recognizes his mistake, and then corrects it. The first recipient was Peter. Peter was a student pilot. He was a solo pilot. He was in our K6. He was coming in dehydrated. He got into the circuit, and he entered the circuit far too low. And he started to fly a regular circuit. And partway through that downwind, he gave his head a shake and went, "This isn't right. Something's wrong." So he created the problem. But then partway through, he recognized it was wrong, and he chose to outland in a soybean field on the other side of the road from the runway, safely. He did not try to fly a regular circuit and wrap the K6 in around a tree, as those things often, continue. So what happened is he landed, he got out safe, we checked on him, you're alive, you're good, the plane was not damaged, we talked about what happened and why, we talked about it openly, and we awarded him for taking the corrective action, to recognizing his mistake and saying, "I messed up, but I made a correction." So when we talk about barriers, and we talk about the checklists, that's one barrier. And we have the Swiss cheese model that has multiple barriers. So here is an example where we have 4 ineffective barriers that did not stop the chain of events. The assembly checklist, the pre-flight checklist, the I am safe checklist, and so on. Now, it's not all bad news. Again, doom and gloom, So we see, and we're seeing more and more in the reporting, lots of chains of events stopped. I'm seeing lots more of people reporting that, we had this starting to happen and we stopped it. We're also getting lots of reporting. And again, I want to thank the SAC Board for supporting that, because we've had 3 years of the safety fund. This is now the 4th year. So we're seeing lots of reporting. People are talking about it, and the message is getting out there. And we're starting to see a good safety culture, both at SAC and within the club. So we're seeing some good stuff. So what's happening is those ineffective barriers are turning into effective barriers. Now, awareness is a big part of this. We need to be aware, because of course, as pilots, we tend to read accident reports and think, that would never be me. I would never do that. So I want you to start by thinking about yourself. How proficient are you? When was the last time you did a check flight? When was the last time you did spins? Again, we were chatting at lunch, right? What does that look like? And if you're seeing something within your club that doesn't feel right, speak up. So we think about our crew. Who's running our wing for us? Who's helping us rig? Where are they, and how competent are they? And are they contributing to the environment or taking away from it? What does our club culture look like? What does the SAC culture look like? And if you're seeing something you don't like, speak up. If you're seeing something you like, participate. Read those articles. Look at the posts. Contribute to the conversation. Let's all build this culture so that we're all learning from each other. Right? That's what we do in aviation. If you look at any AD, why was it issued? Because someone somewhere had an issue. And they looked at it and said, there's other airplanes out there we need to alert. So some of the tools that we have, a key one is the checklist, which we talked about. I am safe, the critical assembly check, sister CO, SWAF's call. But there's one that's not really formalized that we're formalizing this year through flight training and safety, which is the wing runner checklist. Some clubs are doing this, some are not. I'd like to propose that we make this more of a formal thing. So here's what we've been doing at Great Lakes, and I've run this by the flight training and safety, and we're going to roll this out nationally as a formal checklist. Okay? Before you walk to the wingtip, so here's the scenario. Sylvain's about to launch in his glider. I've just hooked up the rope. I'm about to walk to the wingtip. Before I walk there, I'm going to say to Sylvain, canopy closed and locked? And I expect a response.
Locked.
Spoilers closed and locked.
Yes.
And finally, I look and say, tail dolly off. Now, I don't need a response from the third one because I'm telling him his tail dolly's off. Shall we do the French version?
Sure. Alors, juste pour récapituler, ils veulent le formaliser sous forme de checklist, mais pour responsabiliser la personne au bout de l'aile. Je pense que tous les clubs ont eu des incidents. Notre club même a eu un incident avec un vol complet avec la roue de queue encore attachée après le planeur. Puis pourtant, on le fait. En le formalisant comme ça, le déclencheur, c'est au moment d'accrocher le planeur, on accroche le planeur et avant de quitter, pour ne pas le faire au bout de l'aile, la personne interroge le pilote, dit « La verrière est verrouillée? » Oui, elle est verrouillée. Les spoilers sont rentrés? Oui, ils sont rentrés. Ta roue de queue est enlevée. Puis là, on s'en va au bout de l'aile. C'est une proposition qu'ils ont essayée à leur club, puis ils veulent le formaliser avec la SAC. OK?
Merci.
C'est une bonne idée. Oui.
I'd like to bring up one point.
Yes.
Sometimes I do check, and I was made aware by a tow pilot, it's the flap angle.
The flaps as well. Do we want to add that to the checklist or not?
If the flaps are not at right angle when you take off.
Yeah, what's the right angle, though?
So now,
Well,
now,
one too low, so take off.
now,
I'm just
so part of what I've done is I've taken some lessons from a fantastic book called The Checklist Manifesto. And if anyone has read it, Checklist Manifesto, anyone? Fantastic book, highly recommend it. It's written by a surgeon, a doctor. And what they did is they implemented checklists using the aviation example worldwide, and they reduced the deaths as a result, direct results of surgeries by 46% with just a checklist, like not changing their procedures. But one of the lessons I took out of that is with a checklist, shorter is often better, and include the items that pilots or people, professionals, doctors included, are missing, right? So don't include all of the items, and especially ones where they 99% of the time, most of the time, get it right. I agree with you that we need to get our flap angle correct for takeoff. But what I'm not seeing is that showing up as an issue, right? So keeping it shorter, yes, we're going to do that. And likely, as someone who's flying a flap ship, you're going to be a little bit more advanced. Those are other checks, your SWAFs, right? Your sister CO, your pre-takeoff, your pre-landing checks. Those are going to cover that. What we are seeing, though, is we're seeing canopies being left open and spoilers being left open. So let's fix that. For you, if you want to add that one, great. What I would suggest is tie it with spoilers. So when that wing runner says to you, spoilers closed and locked, you can say yes and flaps. Does that work?
Flaps up, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. I would like to suggest that we try this. Now, just a couple quick points here. Why before we walk to the wingtip? Sorry, your name?
Guy.
Guy. So I've just hooked Guy up. Why would I do this before I walk to the wingtip?
So you don't have to yell.
Yeah, because I've just hooked Guy up. And what sort of ship do you fly?
Oh, the LS4.
LS4, so 15 meter. Spoilers, canopy. And of course you've got an engine running and you've got wind and yeah, exactly. So we don't have to yell, right? Why after hookup? Because your canopy's closed at that point. Because there's no point in me checking if the canopy's still open. There's no point in checking if he hasn't run his sister CO's pre-takeoff checks. Now, the moment I hook you up, you're ready to launch, yeah? So this is a last double check, because you should have already done this, yeah? Excellent. So canopy closed, I've hooked you up, right? These LS4s with their low hookup. Okay, so we hook that up, we get you going, you're ready to roll. Last quick check, canopy, spoilers, tail dolly, enjoy your flight. Yeah, good. Now I can do my usual, yeah?
On a two-seater,
Yes.
you've got a civilian, let's call him that way, in the front seat, and the duty officer on the second seat. What I do is I check if the guest is doing things right. Is he locked in with his seat belt and all this? The safety officers aren't seeing problems with guests in the planes?
The only incident that I've seen, and there's been 2 of them, with guests is them pulling the release early. And the first one was with a DG-1000 at about 50 feet on takeoff. And what had happened was the Vario was not set correctly, so it was not set for climb. And the backseat pilot asked the front seat passenger to adjust that. Now, what's about the only thing that you've really taught a front seat passenger to do? Is pull the release. So they heard some instruction from the back and went, oh, well, the only thing I really know to do and that I was told the only thing I'm going to be doing is to pull this yellow handle, so let me pull that yellow handle because I think that's what he's asking me for at this point in time. So I'm a big fan of having the passenger pull the yellow handle because what I found is when you pull it, it surprises them, right? So I'm a fan of doing that. But I'm also a fan of making sure that I'm very clear when, A, and B, if I get into a situation where maybe my radio's not on or my Vario hasn't been set correctly or turned on or something like that, and I'm going to live with that through the tow, and let's deal with that after we're off the tow. Dan?
I've also had reports of the canopy being open when they reach, especially with the gliders where the canopy release is near the tow release.
Yes.
And they've reached up, grabbed the canopy lever by mistake. If I'm in an aircraft that has that and I'm asking them to do the release, I brief them before takeoff, and I've got my hand on the canopy lock to make sure they don't grab the lock.
Good point, thank you. George?
I believe the air cadets are told, once you hook up, you get out of the way, because, so is that an issue for us?
Once you hook up, like the wing runner?
Yes,
So hook up and run?
get out of the way of the wings in case the plane takes off,
Or pulls forward.
yeah. Especially on a winch. On a winch, that's the other thing I think they're told, don't stay in front of the airplane, so I'm just wondering about this staying there. Yes, there's an advantage of staying there and talking to the pilot, but there's perhaps.
Yes?
Being a former air cadet for 25 years, when we hook up, we check the canopy, back door, and then we get out of the way.
So you are checking it?
Yeah.
Now,
What else?
yeah, good. So the question was around, what about the cadets who are taught, close it, get out of the way, or hook up, get out of the way? Honestly, how long is it going to take to say canopy closed and locked, spoilers closed and locked, tail dolly out of the way? You're talking 4, maybe 5 seconds, right? It's a very quick thing. Now, are you going to get it right the first time? No. It took us an entire season to get comfortable with this. Okay? That's normal, and that's okay. Yeah? Any other thoughts or questions? Yes?
Yeah, just on the tail dolly, it's to me, if a glider's on the grid and it's oriented for takeoff,
Yes.
it shouldn't have a dolly.
Agreed.
So part of the thing, like in our club, when I brief new people, I always stress with them when you move the little golf cart or whatever you have, you don't leave until you've got the person's dolly.
Yep.
And then the other thing is people who are standing there socializing and talking, if you look out on the grid, if you see a glider gridded, oriented for takeoff, and you see a dolly.
Go fix it. Yes.
So, because the other thing with the dolly is a lot of times the wing runner are the junior people in the club, and there's all sorts of different models of dollies. On some of the gliders, it's just a little wheel that's underneath. It's not
Now-
important because it falls out.
Yep.
Not everybody knows what to
Agreed.
look for the dolly. So
Is-
the canopy and spoilers I can buy.
Okay.
The dolly, I wonder.
Maybe not. Give it a try. Report back. Fair?
Yeah.
Now, have you seen a tail dolly? Now, most gliders are white. Let's assume the glider's white. Have you seen a tail dolly that's white? No. What color are they usually?
Contrasting orange or red.
Usually contrasting orange or red. I've painted mine yellow, and I'm planning to put red diagonal stripes on it because I've got, yellow or orange accents on my airplane.
Over under the wing, it's all orientation.
Absolutely. Relatively easy to see, right? Those are also things that we have. We've had it happen at our club. Who here has had knows of a flight personally, not whether they did it themselves or it was, you know, a club member who left their tail dolly on and did a flight. We've all been there, right? I love the ones that are just the wheel and the spike on the bottom because, of course, they fall off. And we have several of those at our club. K6s are fabulous for that, right? Because you take the little spoon of the tail skid and, you know, you just do a little castering thing and you forget it. And those are also ones easy to forget because, of course, they're down in the grass, right? Yeah. Let's give it a try, okay? These first two are very definitely the bigger issues. This one, not so much anymore. It used to be. But yeah, let's give it a try. And really, it's just it's one quick small thing, okay? But good point, thank you. So now we get into the question of have we trained our junior guys properly, right? Because we now are into more of a systems issue of we're getting people to run the wings who aren't necessarily properly qualified, right? Okay. I also just want to reiterate decision-making tool of SOAR, situation, options, actions, repeat. It is a cyclical piece. We are constantly doing this as we fly. To finish this off, I want to just share with you some of my favorite incident reports. And the reason I like to share these is because I want to support and encourage this learning culture. And they're in quotes because these are unedited. So I do edit the accident reports down. I genericize them. I take away any references to particular locations or types of airplanes as much as possible and make them, you know, very generic so that we have that anonymity. I am a different pilot when I'm rusty. So the report of the incident was there was a PIO on takeoff. The takeoff was aborted. The pilot landed. There was no damage. See, this is where we're getting the good reporting.
What is the PIO?
Oh, pilot-induced oscillation. You're doing this, right? So it was a spring check flight, took off, ballooned up, overcorrected. It started to develop. He said, this is bad. Popped off tow, landed safely on the remaining piece of the runway. Pilot observes during his takeoff that there has a pitching problem. Released the cable and landed on the runway. Now, I'm highlighting these two because we get into some continuation bias where we want to keep going. If you're on that initial takeoff and something's not right, shut it down because you can always launch again. Wing runner on the phone while the glider was being towed on the ground. So this was behind a golf cart, behind a ground vehicle. So what did the driver of the golf cart do? He stopped until the phone was put away. Now, the reason I wanted to highlight this one is because this is very much a systems piece. We get the behavior we allow, right? So I'm, Guy? Was it Guy?
Yep.
Yeah, it's good. So Guy is driving the golf cart, I'm holding the wing, and I'm on my phone, and Guy notices that. He has two choices. He can keep going, or he can stop and say, Dave, right? So you stop and you say, Dave, put the phone away, right? Okay, good, yeah. All right. Now, this one I want to really highlight, because this is one that in a lot of cases turns into a fatal. Winch launch, stall. So the initial winch launch pulled up, wasn't going fast enough, called on the radio for more speed. The glider stalled, it started the rotation, the cable broke, and that moment, the pilot's training kicked in and he corrected the situation. So if this was at my club, he would be winning the Senior Sky Commander Award. But in short, he got too slow. So here are some factors. This was the first flight of the season for this gentleman. We are different pilot when we are rusty. There were some preconceptions. Prior flights, he'd been winched too fast and he'd gotten into overspeeds. So he'd ask the winch operator for slower, please. Well, a little bit too much there. Emergency procedures need to be instinctive. So the stall induced a wing drop, the reaction stick forward, opposite rudder. As he says, it came from somewhere deep inside. It was ingrained. So he didn't think, he reacted. And we want to make sure that those reactions are good, right? Factors, know your options before takeoff. Response to a rope break in that 3 to 500 zone. There was plenty of runway for safe landing ahead. Beware of fixation. He was fixated on speed and he was on the radio calling instead of lowering the nose, which would have actually solved his problem. I'm getting lots of knowing nods around the room, so this is good. Final note on this, and he gave me a 2.5-page report on this, by the way. My training can be summed up by aviate, navigate, communicate. When he keyed the mic to ask for more speed, he was going to the third of those three. He had not properly aviated, nose down. It would have been enough to keep the safe flying speed. Hope there are some lessons for everyone here. Again, these were his words, and this is why I'm sharing this, because you want to share this. You want to have those conversations. Having hangar flying, having the beer after flying, and sharing with people your stories saves lives. He says, I followed up this flight with a perfectly normal lunch and landing immediately afterwards. So he got back in the saddle and went again. So just to wrap up our safety report, I'm going to give this a try. Réflexion préliminaire.
Good.
Yay! Would you like to finish it off? Because I'm going to just make sure I don't mess it up.
Mais encore, ma sécurité compte pour moi parce que je compte pour lui. Donc, encore là, de ne pas oublier qu'il y a un élément personnel dans ce qu'on fait et dans la discipline nécessaire de le faire de façon sécuritaire.
Merci. Thank you. So I sent out a note to Flight Training and Safety and said, send me a picture of you and your loved ones. My safety matters to me because I matter to her. There's Dan. From Jason. My safety matters to me because I matter to her. I love this one from John. They all matter to me, so my safety matters. Some nice retro pictures. We have a budding pilot it just drew Harvard. Thank you. Yeah, my safety matters to me because I matter to him, and my safety matters to me because I matter to them. So I'm going to send out a note to all safety officers, to all clubs, and ask them to send me a picture. And then we're going to turn this into a poster, and I invite you to post that at your club. Somewhere prominent, somewhere you walk by every day, in the clubhouse, in the hangar. Because we need to be thinking about the people who are left behind. Because it's not just me who suffers. Actually, if I get into a fatal accident, I'm not suffering at all. I've moved on to the next phase or whatever is out there beyond this mortal coil. It's the people left behind. So let's think about them. So thank you all for taking the time today. But, you know, whenever we talk safety, there's lots of doom and gloom. So I thought I'd finish off with just a nice little lovely short 1-minute video to remind us why the heck we do this silly sport. So this was last summer. I was up in our K6 just on a nice fun flight, and there was a Krosno, and I think that was actually a guest flight, and he was tootling along and I was tootling along, and we were kind of half sharing a thermal together, and it was a nice little video, and I thought let's just remind ourselves why we're doing this, because there's a lot of really good stuff here. Dan?
You're out climbing.
If I wasn't, I'm doing something wrong.
So in 30 years of looking at accidents and incidents, we're finding that we're not seeing too much that's new to us.
No.
So what we're seeing is other pilots making the same mistake. So the information's out there. We need to keep talking about it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Looking forward to another flight like that, yeah? Yeah. All right. We're going to do a very short pause here while I just reset to the neuroscience of safety piece. So we'll be back with you in about 5 minutes. So if anyone needs to do a quick bio break and run. I will put this up again at the end. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions or anything.
Question.
Yes.
You spoke about being a rusty pilot.
Yes.
Is there a clear definition of what is a rusty pilot? It's like less than 5 flights
Right.
since the last 12 months?
Love it. So the question was, I spoke about being a rusty pilot, and the question is there a clear definition of what a rusty pilot is? And the short answer is no. Now, there's actually it's like a safety gauge that has two sides to it. And what you do on one side is you say, when was the last time I flew? So how rusty am I? And then the other is you put how much experience you have. So if you have low experience and you haven't flown for 6 months, you're very much in the danger zone, yeah? If you have high experience, but you haven't flown for a while, your high experience is gonna help bring you up out of that danger zone. Then of course, if you're more current and recent and you're more experienced, you're up out of that danger zone. The thing with taking the 6 months off over winter, what tends to degrade is our decision-making skills, not our stick and rudder. So for any of you who have had a break in your flying careers, and I've had one or two where I've taken a couple years off, you get back into the cockpit, you do that first flight, and you go, oh, I can do a coordinated turn. Oh, cool, I didn't lose anything. But what you've lost is all the thinking side of it. This is why I'm highly encouraging clubs to do a spring safety seminar. And the structure that I've been using for ours since 2003 is we do it before we start flying. Now, we've slowly moved it earlier and earlier in the year because what happened is we had it closer to when the flying season started, and every once in a while you get the right weather conditions and the flying season starts a couple weeks earlier than we anticipated. And now you've got guys on the field rigging airplanes and going, but, so we moved it a month and a half, like ahead of our earliest ever start, and we're actually doing it next week. We also make it mandatory, okay? So there is no hard and fast. The more experience you have, the quicker and easier you're gonna get back into it, okay? But there is a bit of an insidious piece there. Thank you for the question. Any other questions, thoughts, comments? Excellent. Yes? The comment was, people are very suggestible. Intro flights are very suggestible. So if you say don't touch anything, that's all they're thinking about. If you say here's the bag for being airsick, that's all they're thinking about. So I agree with you. I think we tend to over-brief our intro passengers, in my humble opinion. But I love your idea. Is if you feel insecure, grab the straps and just pull down. All right? I often tell people just put your hands on your legs, but I like that. Pull down on the straps. Yeah. The other thing that I do for intro flights is I start not by briefing them, but I start by asking them, what do you want out of this flight? Because I've gotten so many intro flights over the years who just want to sit and look out the window. They don't want to know how the airplane works. They don't want to know what the instruments are. They don't want to fly it. They just want to sit and enjoy the beautiful view.
Even if they are pilots.
Even if they are pilots, yeah, at times, yeah. So I always start by what do you want to get out of it? And then I don't go through and here's all the instruments and here's what this one does and here's the difference between a Vario and a VSI. Unless they come to me and saying, I want to get my license. I want to become a glider pilot and I've signed up. Okay, now we start to do that. But you're absolutely right. We overwhelm them so much. Let's give them that simple piece. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that.
And if you want to ask them to release,
yes,
ask them or show them the yellow handle at 3,000 feet, not
Yeah.
on the ground. Don't talk about it. You say touch nothing. At 3,000 feet, you say, you see the yellow handle? When I tell you, you release.
Yeah.
2 minutes after, you say, okay, now pull the handle. It's so safe
Yeah.
that way.
And I always refer to it as the yellow handle by your left knee. Because they say yellow handle and they're going, look, by your left knee, there's a little yellow handle. You see that? Yeah, put your hand on it, and I'm watching them. Yeah, that's the one. No, okay, good. Yeah. So thank you.